All right, let's dive into this lecture on architectural flexibility. You sent over this fascinating piece, and I'm really curious to dig into some of these concepts with you. We're going to talk about how buildings adapt, from kitchens and bathrooms to even the placement of stairwells. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think what's so intriguing is how it kind of reframes our understanding of flexibility. It's less about like predicting specific needs in the future and more about how spaces can accommodate change in general.
Right, and that resonates with me because so many of us have had to rethink our homes and workspaces lately. Life is unpredictable and our buildings should kind of be ready to adapt too. So the lecture really dives into this whole empty plan concept that a lot of modernist architects used.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine a space where walls aren't dictating what the function is. Instead, you have certain fixed points, like a kitchen or a bathroom, but the rest is, it's more open and adaptable, like Mies van der Rohe's Farnsworth House. It's that sleek glass box with just the central service core.
Right. Oh yeah, I love that one. So, okay, the empty plan is like the foundation for flexibility. But then the lecture keeps mentioning strips, or sometimes they call them stickers. What are those all about?
So these strips are basically like linear modules that house the service areas, like the kitchens, bathrooms, storage. They're designed to be really efficient so they don't take up a lot of space, and that maximizes the flexibility of everything else around them. Think of them almost like built-in furniture that runs along a wall, and then the rest of the floor plan is open.
So you're saying instead of like big fixed service areas, you have these sleek adaptable modules that can be configured in different ways. The lecture actually shows this prefabricated bathroom kitchen unit, and it's like it just plugs right into the building. It's pretty wild.
Oh. Yeah, maximizing that adaptability, right? Imagine being able to like rearrange your entire living space just by moving these units around. And it's interesting because these ideas aren't limited to like just single family homes. The lecture actually shows how this can apply to apartment buildings and even entire urban environments.
That's cool. It makes you think about how all these design elements would impact the relationship between the buildings and the city as a whole. The lecture also talks about stairs, internal stairs, I should say, and how their placement can totally change a space. They bring up that Peter Eisenman housing project as an example.
No, yeah. In Eisenman's design, the stairs are more than just a functional element. They actually create a dynamic spatial experience, shaping, the flow and the feel of each floor. It's a good reminder that even something as simple as stairs can be a powerful tool for creating flexible spaces that are engaging.
For sure. And it's not just about the interiors either, right? They talked about intermediate spaces too.
Right. Those are the areas that kind of blur the lines between inside and outside, like terraces, balconies, even internal courtyards. They act as like bridges between the interior and exterior. I think it really enriches the experience of living in a space and fosters, a connection with the natural world. Think about it. Like, how much does having access to outdoor space affect how you experience your own living space?
A lot, I would say. For me, I find those transitional spaces super valuable. It
Yep.
just gives you this sense of openness, makes you feel connected to the outside. And, thinking about those intermediate spaces, it also brings to mind that whole concept of um, modulation they mentioned.
Yeah, modulation. It's basically the use of repetitive patterns and modules. And it's really key to achieving flexibility. It's kind of like using building blocks to create a structure that can be easily reconfigured. Think of it like Legos. You have this set of standardized components that can be combined in endless ways.
I love that analogy. Makes it much easier to understand for sure.
Right. And the great thing is that modulation can be applied at all these different scales. You can use it for like individual rooms, but also for entire buildings and even for urban planning.
So it's not just about creating flexible spaces within a building, but also about creating a flexible urban fabric where buildings can adapt to the changing needs of the city around them.
Exactly. It's about creating this really dynamic interplay between buildings and their surroundings.
That's awesome. The lecture talked about how these principles of flexibility can really shape a city's character and help create a more adaptable and responsive urban environment. And speaking of examples, they show some projects that really embrace these ideas.
Yeah, there was one project in Barcelona that really caught my eye. The architects used that central strip concept for the services, but then the outer strips were super flexible. They could be patios or enclosed rooms or even just left open. It really blurred the lines between the building and the street.
Wow, so it's like the building is actually part of the cityscape. It's not just a barrier. It's more like this adaptable interface with the urban environment.
That's really cool. I noticed that project also emphasized the social aspects of flexible design, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about the spaces themselves, but about how those spaces can encourage social interaction. When a building can change to accommodate different activities, it creates all these opportunities for people to connect and build community.
Right, so it's not just about aesthetics or efficiency. It's about how design can impact social interaction and even like the whole vibe of the city. I mean, it sounds like these buildings could actually be like social catalysts. But the lecture also mentions some of the challenges of this approach.
Yeah, it's definitely not as simple as just saying, let's make everything flexible. It requires a different kind of mindset. You're creating a framework for adaptation, not just fixed spaces.
Yeah.
It's more like giving someone the tools to craft their own space rather than handing them a finished product. I see what you mean. So it's about empowering people to kind of shape their own environment. But wouldn't that be overwhelming for some people? I mean, where do you even begin when there are so many possibilities?
That's where the architect's skill comes in. A well-designed, flexible space will provide some guidance without being too rigid. It's like offering guidelines or principles that allow for individual expression within a cohesive overall design.
Oh, okay. So it's about finding that balance between structure and freedom. I guess that also brings up the importance of collaboration in flexible design.
Definitely. It's not a one-person show. You have to involve architects, engineers, contractors, and of course the people who will actually be using the space. It's all about understanding their needs and aspirations and designing with their input in mind.
And that makes me think of those intermediate spaces again. Imagine working with a homeowner to design a balcony that really reflects their lifestyle and how they connect with the outdoors. And speaking of the future, the lecture touched on the role of prefabrication in flexible design.
Prefabrication is huge. It's basically using pre-made building components, and it's a game changer for both efficiency and adaptability. You can assemble, reconfigure, or even replace these modules as needs change. Like that plug-and-play bathroom and kitchen unit we talked about earlier. That's a great example of how prefabrication can really push the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. But it's also a really smart solution. It addresses sustainability concerns by reducing waste and disruption on site. Prefabrication seems like it's going to be a big part of the future of flexible design.
I think so too. It combines adaptability, sustainability, and efficiency. It's a really compelling approach. And it allows us to create buildings that are more responsive to the needs of both people and the planet. The lecture also touched on some historical examples of flexible design.
Oh, that's interesting. I was wondering if this was just a modern idea, or have architects always been thinking about flexibility?
Well, in a way, flexibility has always been a part of architecture. Think about early structures like yurts or tents. They had to be adaptable to nomadic lifestyles and changing weather. They were designed to be easily assembled, disassembled, and moved.
Right. They were the ultimate portable and adaptable structures because their lifestyle was all about change. But what about more permanent buildings? Are there any historical examples of those incorporating flexible design?
Sure, a lot of traditional Japanese homes have sliding walls and adaptable floor plans, so they could reconfigure the space for different needs throughout the day. It's fascinating to see how different cultures have approached this need for adaptability in their building traditions.
It's like flexibility is this inherent quality of architecture. It's always been there, evolving and adapting. But then as technology changes and our lifestyles change, those expressions of flexibility also change.
Exactly. It's this ongoing conversation between tradition and innovation. And speaking of innovation, there are some really exciting things happening in flexible design right now.
Ooh, tell me more. What are some of the new technologies and ideas that are shaping the future of adaptable buildings?
Well, one of the most interesting developments is the use of what they call smart materials. These materials can actually respond to changes in the environment, like temperature, light, or humidity. So imagine a building that can automatically adjust its facade to maximize sunlight in the winter and minimize heat gain in the summer.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like the building is a living organism that responds to its surroundings. Are there any other futuristic technologies that you're excited about?
Yeah, robotics is becoming a bigger and bigger part of construction. We're already seeing robots used to assemble prefabricated components and even 3D print entire building elements.
That sounds like science fiction. But how would robots influence flexible design?
Well, for one thing, they can make construction much faster and more efficient, which would make adaptable structures more affordable. Imagine buildings that can be built and reconfigured on demand, responding to changing needs with incredible speed and precision.
Wow, that takes adaptability to a whole new level. And it sounds like robots could also allow for much more intricate and complex designs.
Absolutely. The possibilities are endless. It's this convergence of technology design and a focus on human needs that makes the future of architecture so exciting.
This has been such an amazing conversation. We've gone from ancient nomadic dwellings to the future of smart materials and robots. It's incredible how the idea of flexibility connects it all.
It shows that flexibility isn't just a design principle. It's a way of thinking. It's about recognizing that change is inevitable and embracing it as an opportunity.
I love that. And the lecture really emphasized how important these design principles are for creating adaptable and responsive cities.
It's funny, right? We think of cities as like these fixed things, but they're constantly changing, just like the people who live there.
Yeah, totally. We need to shift our thinking away from this idea that a city is predetermined. We need a more adaptable approach, both for planning and design.
Absolutely. And this is where flexible design comes in. The lecture had some really fascinating examples of how buildings can contribute to a city that is, more resilient and vibrant.
Oh yeah, like what kind of examples?
Well, there was this mixed-use development in Copenhagen. The ground floor was designed to be super flexible. It could be, shops or restaurants or community centers, even just pop-up events, whatever the neighborhood needed.
So it's like the building is this chameleon. It adapts to what's happening around it.
Exactly. And that adaptability benefits everyone, not just the residents and businesses, but it also creates this really cool streetscape. When buildings can change and evolve, the whole city becomes more dynamic, more interesting.
That makes me think about those intermediate spaces we were talking about before. Imagine a building with a flexible ground floor that opens up onto a plaza, or a rooftop garden that blends into a park. It's like the line between public and private space starts to disappear and the city becomes more interconnected.
Right, and that blurring of boundaries can really strengthen communities too. When people have access to shared spaces that can adapt to different uses, it creates so many opportunities for interaction, collaboration, just for a sense of belonging.
Totally. It's like flexible design can help us weave the city together socially.
Yeah.
But it's not just about social benefits, is it? The lecture mentioned economics, too.
You're right. Flexible design can play a huge role in creating a resilient economy. When businesses can easily reconfigure their spaces, they can keep pace with, new technologies, different industries. It encourages innovation and entrepreneurship.
It's like instead of being stuck in a space that's becoming outdated, businesses can adapt right alongside the market.
Exactly. It's about creating a built environment that supports agility, responsiveness, so that businesses can thrive in a world that's, well, let's be honest, it's pretty unpredictable these days.
This has been amazing. I feel like we've covered so much, from tiny rooms to entire cities. It seems like this idea of flexibility has the potential to really change how we design and build and how we, just live in the world.
Yeah, it's definitely about moving beyond those static structures we're used to and thinking about design in a more dynamic, adaptable way. The future is all about change, and our buildings and cities need to be able to change right along with us.
And I think ultimately it comes down to recognizing that flexibility isn't just like an architectural thing. It's a basic human need. It's wanting to live in spaces that can accommodate our lives, that can support us as we grow and change.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So to all our listeners out there, take a look around, look at the spaces you're in right now, and think about how flexibility, or the lack of it, is shaping your experience.
Yeah, maybe this deep dive has given you some ideas for your own home or a workspace, or maybe it's made you think differently about the future of your city.
Whatever you take away from this, just remember that flexibility it's more than just buildings. It's about being open to change, being curious, and just willing to embrace whatever the future brings.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of architectural flexibility. We hope you learned something new and are inspired to keep exploring the possibilities of a more adaptable world.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep imagining.
And don't forget what Buckminster Fuller said. Yeah. We are called to be architects of the future, not its victims.